Is this Albo's Gillard moment? As we remember, before the 2010 election, Julia Gillard said something and then something else happened. It ruined her prime ministership.
There will be no carbon tax under the government I lead.
In 2013, the final pitch of Tony Abbott was used against him in the 2014 budget.
No cuts to the ABC or SBS.
Well, is this going to be the 2022 version of Albo doing a Gillard?
I want people to have the certainty of knowing what their income will be, which is why I argued for and Labor supported. We had amendments there, but once they were not successful, we voted for the legislation of the tax cuts, and we said clearly and explicitly we would keep those legislated tax cuts because people deserve that certainty going forward.
Full credit to Ray Hadley, who found that grab and plenty more that he exposed on his radio show today of a bloke with many Gillard moments. You see, the plan looks like it's going to be to walk away from tax cuts for thousands of Australians. Here's part of what Ray found.
So we're not going to relitigate all of the issues that have occurred at previous elections, and we're going to ensure that there's certainty going forward about what the tax system looks like. We're committed to delivering what we said we would. And I've said on the stage 3 tax cuts that they've been legislated. People are entitled to operate on the basis of that certainty. We inherited it, and I've said that we haven't changed our position.
Now, if you've been paying attention to this show, which I know you do, they've already broken plenty of promises. But this one's going to be one that even lefties are going to have to notice. And already they are noticing in the press that they are creeping away from tax cuts that they voted for. Now, in part, this is happening because there is a lefty media campaign, because they, of course, echo what the Greens say, which is that these tax cuts can't be afforded. The budget doesn't have any money for it.
Doubt is growing over whether Labor will stick to its promised tax cuts.
Promise of these stage 3 tax cuts.
Seeing the stage 3 tax cuts. Stage 3 tax cuts.
Ditch the stage 3 tax cuts.
Oh, and why are we being softened up? Well, of course, we go to more morally important people than you and I. Here's Laura Tingle on the ABC.
With the budget forecast to remain in deficit for the next 4 years, those tax cuts are effectively unfunded, as were the tax cuts in the UK that the Truss government was humiliatingly forced to abandon. Jim Chalmers has been shifting the emphasis of his language on the tax cuts, particularly in the last few days.
Now, remember, these tax cuts for people earning over $180,000, and yes, there's plenty of rich people in that, but I agree with the backbench Labor MP who says not everyone who's earning over 180 grand can be automatically counted as rich. It's way above national average, more than $110,000 above national average. No one's pretending you ain't sitting pretty at 180. But if the logic is that this is an unfunded thing and it would rob the budget of revenue, well, what do you think that getting rid of all of coal and all of gas would do? It would take billions of dollars out of the revenue stream. If everyone started driving an electric vehicle, and I got some news on that later today, well, that, of course, would result in at least $11 billion in petrol taxes that would disappear. But it never seems to matter. This, of course, is people who hate people earning $180,000, who are either jealous or for some reason just think that if you are earning $180,000, then you are the same as a millionaire. It's the sort of stuff that Bill Shorten at least was willing to admit to before the last election. But is the Labor Party about to do what they always planned to do, which was to screw the so-called rich? Here's part of the crawl away that is happening as Labor prepares to do another Gillard. Pay very close attention to the words being said by a bloke who said, we would never change our mind.
And my job and the government's job is to take the right decision, even if it's difficult, to put the economics before the politics and let the political cards fall where they may.
Oh, so you can break a promise. That's the politics bit. The economy bit means we need as much money as possible to fund our promises. And the reality is that you can pick any single thing in the budget. And as long as it's in deficit, we're borrowing money, which means it's unfunded. Again, Finance Minister today softening us up for a Gillard in 2022.
We have not changed our position on stage 3, but we are finalising a budget, and I think the Treasurer and I have been upfront with some of the challenges and some of the changes we've been seeing in the economy. The economic environment we've got right now, the decisions the Reserve Bank is taking, and then some of those pressures that I've outlined on the budget. They are the mix across those 3. They are the issues that are influencing the decisions that we will take in the lead up to the October budget.
All of that was the same at the election. All of that was the same the year before the election. As for Peter Dutton, he is exactly on target right now, which is why people are starting to get annoyed at him. And that means the closer you are to the target, the crazier the lefties get. This is Middle Stump from Brisbane today.
They are obviously walking away from the stage 3 tax cuts. Now, that would be a significant break of faith with the Australian public, Chris, because there are many people who voted for them on the basis that they weren't going to increase taxes. Stage 3 tax cuts here in Australia are very different to what Liz Truss has proposed and now walked away from in the UK. We do not abolish the top marginal tax rate under the stage 3 tax cuts here.
So, Albo, over to you. Prove me wrong that you're not going to do a Gillard in 2022 because we've got the tape, mate.
I want people to have the certainty of knowing what their income will be, which is why I argued for and Labor supported. We had amendments there, but once they were not successful, we voted for the legislation of the tax cuts, and we said clearly and explicitly we would keep those legislated tax cuts because people deserve that certainty going forward.
Funny thing about broken promises, we always keep the tape.
There will be no carbon tax under the government I lead.